Good morning, 8th graders, and here we are at Monday, December 7th. We only have one more week after this week, and then it is Christmas break. So today we are forging ahead into the next chapter, which is Verbs, and we will be on page 227. Let me just make a note. Your chapter test should have been done last week. If you haven't finished that, then you do need to make that a priority this week. If for some reason you don't have a copy of it, I've sent it by email and it is on Sycamore. So make sure you have that done before you come on Wednesday. So now let's get started with identifying verbs. This should be fairly simple and hopefully a lot of review for you. The end part where we are doing some diagramming, I think that will be important for you to review so that you know how to diagram multiple verbs and multiple direct objects. So let's begin on page 227 with the gray box. And within the gray box, here are the things that we are going to be learning and working on. You know already that the verb is the action part of a sentence, but it can also communicate a state of being. And we're going to look at the state of being verbs because a verb isn't always a nice action word that you can see in your head. Sometimes it is simply the word is or are, and those are the state of being. Remember that every clause must have a verb. So independent or dependent clauses must have verbs. You also need to remember that sometimes a verb will take on the word to or will have an ending of ing, and then that becomes another part of the sentence. So be careful. Don't just look for an action word, but look around it to see what other words are with it. Also, a verb phrase is going to include the verb and let me just change this real quick, and a helping verb. So a verb phrase is going to have the main verb, and it's also going to possibly have a helping verb with it. Compound verbs are connected with a conjunction, and we are going to be looking at those at the end to make sure you know how to use those. So as we've already talked about, many of our verbs show up as action words. We can see what the subject is doing in our heads. So Bob pranced across the floor, pranced. You can see Bob prancing. Bob sang in the shower. We can see Bob singing. Mom baked in the kitchen. We can see Mom baking. Those are super easy, and you shouldn't have any trouble finding those words. But it is the other words that sometimes give us a little bit of a trick. And our main verbs sometimes have one of these words hooked on as a helping verb. So here are several categories of helping verbs. First, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been are known as the being verbs. And these can be attached to a verb. I am walking to the store. Am walking. Now, you could look at that word walking and be confused because we know it could be a gerund. But if it has one of these words attached to it, then it is likely not the gerund. Instead, they are being used as helping words or helping verbs. Also, have, has, and had, do, does, and did can also be used in a helping way. So I did complete my homework. Complete is the main verb and did is the helping verb. On a diagramming line, you want to put both of those together. Am, doing, did, complete. Both of those would sit side by side in the verb spot. So don't think you have to put one of them elsewhere. Okay, these are words that are only used as helping verbs. Very rarely would you see them used in any other capacity. So if you see one of these words, may, might, must, can, could, shall, should, will, would. I shall complete my homework. I should complete my homework. They're used most of the time in our English world. They are used as helping verbs only. You can see them. I can. You could answer I can if mom asked you a question. So they can be used by themselves, but most of the time they're used as helping verbs. So if you don't have a list of the am, is, are, have, has, had, do, does, it, if you don't have those, I would suggest you putting them on an index card or possibly putting them in your notes somewhere so that you remember that they are helping verbs, and you want to look for these in all of your sentences. Same with these, so you may want to put those into an index card or on your notes so that you can find them easily when you are ready to take a test or quiz. Also, one of the things I want to point out is that you need to be careful to not forget the words that interrupt. So just like you guys, let's pretend that mom or dad is off talking to a friend somewhere, and you go up to them and you interrupt, "Mom, come on." Or perhaps you interrupt a sibling or friend who's telling a story. It's almost like a nagging interruption when kids do that to their parents or when you do it to a friend. And it's the same way in our sentences. There are words that are nagging interruptions in our sentences. And generally they are negative words or other adverbs. And they pop in between a helping word and a main verb, or a helping verb and a main verb. You've seen these in something like, I would never eat. Sorry, I had to think of one off the top of my head. I would never eat snails. And so what is the verb would eat? But notice that never came popping in there to interrupt. Never, not, ever. All of those are adverbs that are going to go underneath. So get into the habit of knowing what some of these interruption words are. And this is just 3 of them. There are more. So make sure that you know any of these negative words. I could never eat snails. Could eat is going to go on the top line. Never is going to be on a diagonal right underneath the verb. So just make sure that you're aware of those, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, make sure to make note of that to ask Wednesday in class. Now we have some diagramming, and I have taken the examples right out of your book so that you can refer back to them later. I think that's probably easier than coming up with new. But our diagramming in this case has multiple verbs. And you already know that for a multiple verb, you have to have a pencil point, and you put the word and between. So Noah built and warned. There's our 2 verbs, built and warned. But as soon as we add 2 verbs, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we may be adding in a direct object. It could be the same direct object for both, or it could be a different one. And in this case, it's different. Noah built what? Noah built the ark. What else did he do? Noah warned. Noah warned the people. So 2 different verbs with 2 different direct objects. So expect that in this chapter and in this homework that you are going to have multiple verbs and multiple direct objects. All right, let's take a look at the next one. God was preserving Noah's family, but destroying the wicked world. So here we have another one. God was preserving. So we have was and preserving, but was also destroying. So here is our helping verb sitting nice and neatly on the verb spot, but then we break off for the main verb, and here is the conjunction that is between. Preserving what? Preserving family. Destroying what? Destroying the world. So here we have the helping verb and then the 2 main verbs breaking off in our pencil point. And then finally another one, and this is like wacky. So here we have three verbs, and we need three. Now it looks more like a fork. So now we need 3 lines here. So here's our whole sentence. Noah came out of the ark, built an altar, and worshipped the Lord. So the first thing he did was he came out of the ark, and out is an adverb, tells us where, and of the ark is prepositional. So we kind of cross all that out. Came is going to sit on a line by itself. Then he built what? Built an altar. So there's our direct object. And worshipped who or what? Worshipped the Lord. So you have 2 with direct objects, but 1 without. So be very aware that you can certainly have some wacky looking multiple verbs and multiple subjects sometimes. So hopefully this has been pretty easy to understand and help you as far as identifying the verbs in the sentence. Make sure that you take a look, just kind of scroll through the class practice and do a couple of them in your head. And then for homework tomorrow, you will be working on some homework from this. So I hope you have a good day, and I will see you on Wednesday.